104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports. Levac here. Got Brady riding shoddy, and the brackets are all we're talking about. I refuse to lose to Sharon and Human Resources picking on mascots and colors of uniforms, so I'm calling in the big guns. PredictionMachine.com. Paul Bessire is with us. We hung out with him at the Super Bowl. We've talked to him a couple times. This is the guy who breaks down everything we need to know. So let's start with the number one rule, Paul. If I'm filling this bracket out for the first time, what would you tell me? Like when somebody starts filling out the bracket, what's that number one rule when they start?
Yeah, and I'm a professor of bracketology at the University of Cincinnati, so I speak on this quite a bit as well. This is kind of wheelhouse stuff for us.
Take that, Sharon!
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Own that, man. And the most important thing to do, though, is get the end right. I mean, so many people, when it comes to the brackets, are trying to force upsets early, and they eliminate teams that they're going to need later on. You get more points later. Sharon might be winning after Thursday and Friday, but Sharon's not going to be winning at the very end here if you get the end right with your brackets. And so for this year is Michigan State over Kansas. Those are the clear two best teams in the tournament. It is a more top-heavy tournament this year than I think most people realize. Those are the best teams, and those are the teams you don't want to eliminate early. If you want to play around with upsets, especially within the West region, which this year is pretty wide open, you can do that. And the bigger the pool, the more creative you want to be with that. But don't screw anything up when it comes to getting the end right with the teams you're going to need, at least in the Final Four. Michigan State, Kansas being those teams. Also really like North Carolina as well as a team from the East that you probably don't want to eliminate, especially early.
So you're talking about the upsets. You talk about the West region. We know it's wide open. But I really like both Iona and Arkansas Little Rock. Are we going to get that 12-13 matchup? Do I have any chance?
There's certainly a chance of seeing that individual matchup, and I like both of those teams in general as a team. But the problem with that is that Iowa State's really good and Purdue's really good, and the Big Ten itself was underseeded by a line per team. If you look at our numbers, the most likely national champions that are from a 5 seed or worse are in order: Purdue, Indiana, Maryland, and Iowa, meaning that the Big Ten itself looks a whole lot better in our numbers, and the teams like Arkansas Little Rock or South Dakota State that are on that 12 line going up against one of the Big Tens that's a 5, those teams are really playing teams that should be a little bit higher seeded than that. So while Arkansas Little Rock ended up 37th in our power rankings, and while Iona is one of the hottest teams in the country right now and has that star that can put a team on his back, which does come through in the numbers when you're looking at a potential upset, I just don't see it in the matchups that they're playing with the games that they have. And for what it's worth, we also do like Purdue, actually, as the team from that group to make it to the Sweet 16, not Iowa State.
Paul Bessire, PredictionMachine.com, a professor in bracketology. So, again, take that, everybody in the office pool. I'm digging deep. I'm bringing in the big guns this year, and I'm taking all your cash. Now, the biggest criticism for this field of 68 has been teams like Michigan and Syracuse getting in. When you look at those teams, when you crunch the numbers, do they have a chance to do anything in this tournament?
Well, those specific teams do because of the matchups they have. I mean, Michigan should win its game tonight because it's going up against Tulsa, which ranked 100th in our power rankings. So while Michigan might not have had a strong case to get in, Tulsa doesn't have any case to get in, and I don't exactly understand why that happened. So Michigan should win that game, and in Syracuse going up against Dayton doesn't do the things you need to be able to do against Syracuse to be able to win. So they end up actually both winning a game, despite the fact that neither of them are that good and that there was a lot of uncertainty around them. Now, I think that teams like St. Mary's at 29th in our power rankings, Valparaiso of San Diego State, all teams in the top 40 in our power rankings, should have gotten in as two teams from what ended up being one-bid conferences, whereas there are 9 teams ranked between 50th and 100th, including Tulsa at 100 in our power rankings, that got in as at-large teams. So for me, there is a lot of criticism around what the committee did, far more so than any of the other 12 years that I've done this professionally. But some of those teams are going to win, particularly in Michigan's case or even with Syracuse's case, because the matchup looks good and because they're playing other teams that were either overseeded or probably shouldn't be in the tournament.
Paul, what about those people that listen to you and say we gotta have our team right at the end? That's the most important thing. What about those people that pick all 4 number 1 seeds? It's only happened once before. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, man, I don't think it's terrible because we do like Virginia in general. I mean, the West, even though Oregon isn't our most likely Final Four, the West is pretty wide open, so we'll look for chaos to reign there. I don't think it's a really bad option to go with it is 2.1% likely. The actual Final Four that we have, which is the most likely, is Kansas, Michigan State, North Carolina, Oregon. That Final Four happens 3% of the time, so it's not that much different. And even in our most likely championship odds, Michigan State, Kansas, North Carolina, Virginia, Oregon are the top 5 teams. Well, that includes all 4 1 seeds and then obviously a 2 in Michigan State. So I don't think it's that bad of an idea, and it's the right mentality, which is you don't want to get rid of one of those teams you're going to need later early on in the tournament. Look for this year's tournament. Look between 6, 11, 7, 10, 8, 9. For most of the chaos, and then there's a couple 5-12, or there's a 5-12, Yale, Baylor, that ends up looking pretty close, and even some 13-4s, some 1-3-14 with Stephen F. Austin in West Virginia, where you might see the underdog have a decent chance to win and potentially pull off an upset. But don't get rid of the ones early, because this year it does look like those are at least 4 of the top 5 teams in our numbers.
Paul Bessire, PredictionMachine.com. Everybody loves Cinderella when it comes to the bracket. Who's the team that you guys feel has the best chance to be Cinderella and go to the ball, so to speak?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you one on every line. The 12-5 that I just kind of alluded to is don't mess around with the Big Ten, so it ends up basically just being Yale, Baylor. That's the 1-12 that I think could make a run. Again, in part because of Yale's, how good Yale is, but also because of the fact that it's wide open there in the West. The 13-4, still in the West. UNC Wilmington has a chance to knock off Duke. It's actually just as likely that Duke loses to UNC Wilmington as Duke makes it to the Final Four, which is basically what Duke's been for the last 10 years. And certainly this season they've got some major flaws. The 3-14 I just kind of touched on. Stephen F. Austin is the best 14 I've ever seen. If Stephen F. Austin knocks off West Virginia, which is a team that's built almost identical to it, so watch for a lot of press, a lot of turnovers, a lot of offensive rebounds, transition, and no outside shooting. If Stephen F. Austin can knock off West Virginia, Stephen F. Austin would actually be favored in the next game against Michigan, Tulsa, or Notre Dame. So look for they're the one team that I'm paying the most attention to because they're the best team I've ever seen that ended up with a 14 seed, and they're playing a really intriguing matchup with a team built just like them. Deeper sleepers than that, Weber State's the only one that keeps it within single digits on the 15 or 16 line in the upcoming game.
Paul, I was trying to make this case yesterday, and I think you're the guy with the numbers to go to. How much stock do you put in a team that won its conference tournament? Do you look favorably on that because they're coming in hot? Do you say it's actually better off to have had a loss that refocuses you, or does it make no difference at all?
I wish the answer was the latter, but I've done a lot of research on this, especially recently. And in college basketball, so we do 8 different sports. I do over 100,000 different events every year that I predict. And by the events, I mean games. And so this is 67 of them coming up. In college basketball, more than any of the other sports that I cover, and it makes sense for college sports to be this way, but it's particularly in basketball, recent performance is more indicative of what's going to happen in the next game of future success than in any other sport, meaning that the adage is essentially true. The teams that are playing the best in late February and early March are the teams that end up playing the best in mid to late March and early April. Michigan State's a great example of that. Probably the hottest team and best team in the country right now ends up being our most likely national champion. Teams that win their conference tournament generally fit into that category, but a team like Purdue, who we love, that didn't win its conference tournament, clearly lost to one of the other teams that's playing its best basketball right now, too. So don't put too much stock in that. It's just more important to be playing well now than in any other, or recently, I guess is a better way to phrase that, than it is in any other sports that you see in any other event that we could cover over the year.
PredictionMachine.com's Paul Bessire joins us. Paul, my biggest question is, I love Bill Murray, so I want to take Xavier to win it all. How crazy am I?
I think you're crazy. We have Xavier, and this has nothing to do with the fact that I teach at a school that is 4 miles from up the road from Xavier, and that is our bitter rival, if you will. Now, in the numbers, which are completely objective and unbiased, Xavier ends up as the 19th ranked team in our power rankings, meaning that they weren't deserving from, if you're just talking about best teams in the country, maybe deserving by resume, but not the best teams, not deserving by best teams in the country. Xavier is the most likely to get knocked out early, and it should have been a 4 or a 5. Not a 2 seed based on the overall talent there. So Xavier, a lot of major issues and potential weaknesses there. I don't anticipate them making a deep run. In fact, not only do we have the Stephen F. Austin West Virginia team making the Sweet 16, if Stephen F. Austin played Xavier, we would have Stephen F. Austin favored over Xavier, and I'm not even sure Xavier would get there because Wisconsin and Pitt are tough matchups for the Musketeers as well.
It's broke my heart a little bit, but it's okay. At least I know in advance. For everybody who's putting their brackets together, for people who want to shock the office, how does PredictionMachine.com help them?
Yeah, not only do we give you the most likely bracket, so there is a printable bracket. Just go to Prediction Machines, totally free. Click on the button, print it off, write your name on it, hand it in. We can give you that, and that's really good, especially for smaller pools, 10 to 50-person pools. It's going to be great there because most people are going to try to force things in that they shouldn't. And again, Sharon's going to be winning on Thursday, but not on the Monday at the national championship game. That's great. But if you want to also know the likelihood of potential upsets, that can help a lot too, because there are 14 games in this upcoming round, the round of 64, which is now again termed the first round. There are 14 games that are decided by single digits, and where the winner only wins, between 50 and 67% of the time. So if you are looking for upsets, then maybe we don't predict outright, but we do predict as close games. That can help you make some of those decisions as well, especially if you're in a bigger pool where creativity is rewarded a little bit more.
Paul, I love it, man. You made me feel smarter. I'm going to go back and cross out Xavier in a couple of my brackets now. I appreciate the landline and the sanity. I got to be honest with you. There's one I'm still going to leave it in there just because. Just because. I got to leave it once. Paul Bessire, PredictionMachine.com. Use PredictionMachine.com to look as smart as a professor of bracketology. That's something right there.